Could Everton be about to be hit by a 12-point deduction by the Premier League? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, today's big story comes from the Premier League, and Everton Football Club could be about to be hit by a 12-point deduction from the Premier League for breaching one rule of FFP. Now, of course, we know about this issue. We know about Everton, and we know about the kind of financial issues that the club have been facing in recent times. But today's news seems to suggest that maybe the Premier League are about to really hit Everton hard with a big points deduction that could see Everton's season take a huge, well, even bigger nosedive than what it already has done so far this campaign. Before we talk about this situation, we talk about the news, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things always and probably greatly appreciated. And of course, for you lot to get involved in the comment section as well. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That'll make for great and interesting reading down below in that comment section. So do get involved down there. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk Everton. Let's talk the Premier League. Let's talk the potential of a 12-point deduction being hit to the Toffees going forward. Now, what we know about this story is that obviously back in March, the Premier League had seemingly found evidence that Everton had breached a rule of FFP that, if found guilty, obviously could be pretty serious. Now, I'm not going to claim that I'm a big FFP expert. I'm not going to claim I'm a big financial expert anyway. But what I am going to say is that obviously I'm going to talk about the news as it gets presented to me, and obviously having done a little bit of research into it and found a couple of news stories and everything. Obviously the facts are convoluted, and obviously Everton are going to deny that they've breached anything or broken anything of that nature. Whether that remains to be true or not obviously remains to be seen, but of course they're denying everything. They're denying breaching anything, they're denying breaking anything. But what we do know is that obviously in March the Premier League referred to this case to an independent commission to see everything and see how everything unfolds in terms of this, because they seemingly had found evidence that after an audit of all top flight clubs and their financial records for the 2021-22 season, they believe that Everton suffer with a tax issue in regards to their new stadium potentially, and they seemingly found evidence to suggest that Everton had breached some form of FFP. Now, this obviously has led to a lot of people pointing the finger at other clubs that are that could be in similar situations. Many fans are pointing the finger at Manchester City and their 115 financial fair play charges that, of course, were brought to light last year. Many people are suggesting that Newcastle may be in a similar position, seemingly suggesting that maybe Aston Villa maybe are in a similar position, having spent a lot of money previously. And there was a lot of finger pointing and a lot of, well, maybe you should investigate this team, maybe you should investigate that team, and so on and so forth. And, you know, I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of aftermath to this. I imagine there's going to be a lot in the wake of this investigation. And a lot of teams right now are probably trying to shore things up as best as possible so that they don't get too much investigated for any sort of wrongdoing. So I imagine that there is a lot of tidying up in-house at a lot of clubs right now. The issue that I will say is that a lot of people have pointed the finger at Manchester City, and I will say that people are suggesting that with them being a bigger club, they are seemingly getting away with it. To that, I would say that I don't think they have. I know that it's been a year since, obviously, the Premier League took note and brought to the public domain about Manchester City's 115 charges that are against them. The thing I will say to that is, I would say it probably is easier to make a quicker investigation happen for the one charge than it is for the 115, and it does seem like the Premier League are going to conduct a thorough investigation into Manchester City, and it does seem to suggest that they are going to go the whole hog with those 115 charges, not do it in stages, not take it case by case, but they're going to try and do it all in sort of one go. So I would imagine it's probably going to be another few years maybe before anything does happen to Manchester City, and by that time, you know, similar to what the UEFA thing was, I imagine a lot of their evidence is going to be time barred, and they're going to have wasted too much time in the investigation, and City will probably get away with it scot-free pretty much in comparison to other teams. So maybe there is a fairness factor to this that maybe needs to be considered, that Everton, as a smaller team, at this moment in time, with all things considered, with all due respect, it is going to be come down hard on by the Premier League, rather than a team like Manchester City, who may have actually breached it more and maybe in more serious hot water, but obviously things are being let slide right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what the aftermath of this is, and whether or not this actually is going to be brought to fruition or not, whether or not there is going to be a 12-point deduction. I think minus 12 points will leave Everton on, I think, -5, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, in the early stages of this campaign. And if it is to get to that, of course, I imagine there will be still investigations. There will probably be appeal processes that Everton may decide to explore and venture down. So I'm going to suggest that we haven't definitely heard the end of this. This isn't obviously going to go away. Whether this obviously does occur or not remains to be seen. I do find it interesting that the Premier League are trying to make an example of Everton in all of this, kick them while they're down a little bit, but you know, from a banterous rival point, it is kind of funny, but at the same time, it could happen to anyone at any time, depending on how your club is. So it's always best to try and be as neutral and as honest as possible in this, because it very well could happen to your club. You have no idea what is going on behind the scenes, what kind of rules your clubs are breaking, or what kind of rules your clubs are bending to those rules, and whether or not your club may be next to be investigated. So it's always best to keep your nose dry in this situation. But it is going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. I think a 12-point ban could really hurt Everton. If they are to be found guilty, if the ban is, or the 12-point reduction, should I say, is to come into play here, I think it could really hurt Everton. And I think it really could hurt Everton because they have been dancing with that relegation devil for a while. For the past few seasons, they've barely managed to scrape through and to keep their heads above water, as much as it is, and to maintain their Premier League status. I think a 12-point ban, okay, maybe it happening so early on in the season may actually help them a little bit in terms of obviously giving them a sort of maybe camaraderie sort of impact, a unity sort of impact, that they've really got to club together for a common cause, rather than it happen later on and down the line at the season. It could have that effect on the club. But obviously that all remains to be seen. Whether or not that's actually going to come into focus or not. What I will say is that if this is to be the case, it could be the final blow for Everton. Like I say before, it could have the opposite effect. This kind of thing could form a siege mentality, I guess you could say, at the club. And let's face it, with the kind of manager that they have and the kind of squad that they have, which isn't brimming with quality, but has a sort of workhorse mentality to it a little bit, it really could bind them together. It really could unify them into helping them overcome what could be a bit of a blow in terms of obviously a big points deduction. But ultimately, I think it might just be a bit too much for them to ask. Like I said, they've been dancing with that relegation devil for a while. They've managed to only just stay up by the skin of their teeth in the past few seasons. This could be the final blow for them. And if it is to be the case, if they are to be found guilty, then of course they need to be punished. Whether 12 points is maybe too far for them to go down that road, and whether it's too harsh of a punishment obviously remains to be seen. Like I say, I'm not going to claim to be a financial expert. I'm not going to claim to be any sort of expert in this kind of field whatsoever. So I don't know whether or not this is going to be a fair enough punishment or not, whether it's going to be harsh on Everton. And of course, like I say, there is still a long way to go, because there's going to be a lot of talk about whether or not that it's fair, whether or not that Everton have breached anything at all, whether or not Everton appeal that or not. A lot of different things and little bits in play in regards to the story. But it will be interesting to see Everton's future, because, like I say, Everton's future right now, it doesn't look great. There is a bit of light. In terms of a takeover, there is a bit of light. I don't know if that's been official yet or has been confirmed as to being a full takeover yet. But of course, there was talk about a takeover. Not 100% sure how well that's gone down. I haven't read too much into it, admittedly, on that front. But of course, many people will probably say it can't be any worse than what Everton are going through right now, which could be a good thing for them. So there is a takeover, so it's a potential light at the end of the tunnel, but this is just another punch to the gut if this is to obviously happen. And obviously, if they are to go down and they are to be found guilty, does that have any impact on their financial future? Does that have any impact on the transfers that they can produce? Does that have any impact on their status as either a Premier League or a Championship club? Does their downfall and continue to spiral out of control? What's to be made of their new stadium? Does that continue to go ahead? There's a lot of things really that are called into question with Everton, and this situation obviously isn't helping matters at all, and is only asking more questions than it is giving answers. We'll obviously have to wait and see, like I say, if this is to be the case. But a big 12 points deduction is what Everton are potentially facing in this situation here. But as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this whole Everton situation? Is a potential 12-point deduction in the script for Everton going forward? Is this too harsh of a punishment? Is this going to happen in its entirety? And what do you make of Everton's future as a whole? Would love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it on this particular subject down below in the comment section, because I'm sure it'll make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the right if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. And I'll see you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.